Another nanny nightmare for Meghan Markle and Prince Harry.
A royal nanny just broke her silence about what she allegedly saw behind palace walls.
A working mom, and she goes, it can be incredibly overwhelming. Oh my gosh, I just need a break.
And what she's saying about how Meghan Markle treated Archie is making people question everything they thought they knew about the Sussex family.
And then we find out she's had a full-time nanny for 5 years who takes the kids to school.
This is the same woman who spent years telling everyone she's a caring, protective mother. The same woman who said the royal family was harmful to her kids. But according to this nanny's tearful account, the reality of what happened in those private moments tells a completely different story.
The nanny that the couple have been relying on for some time wants out.
You probably think this is just another angry former employee. But here's the kicker. This nanny stayed quiet for years because of palace rules. The fact that she's speaking now, crying, means something really broke that silence. And what she's alleging about Meghan's behavior toward her own son is genuinely disturbing.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry had got through 3 nannies in just 6 weeks. And that's because working for this couple is incredibly difficult.
Let's start with what Meghan wants you to believe. She says she's the ultimate protective mother, the woman who left an entire country to keep her kids away from reporters, the woman who lectures about mental health and emotional safety for kids. It's literally the foundation of everything she built after leaving the royal family. She's given interviews about the importance of gentle parenting. She's talked about creating a nurturing environment. She's presented herself as the kind of mother who puts her children's emotional well-being above everything else, including her own ambitions. But according to this anonymous royal nanny who worked directly with the Sussex household during Archie's early months, that public narrative and the private reality were 2 completely different things. According to the nanny's account, Meghan's needs always came before Archie's routine. The nanny shared this through someone else to protect her identity. She says the baby's schedule was constantly disrupted for photo opportunities and public appearances. She says Meghan yelled at her for following standard childcare practices that got in the way of Meghan's image. Think about that contradiction. The woman who claims she left the royal family to protect her son was allegedly prioritizing PR opportunities over his basic needs as an infant. The nanny says Meghan told her to wake Archie from naps so she could be photographed holding him at specific times. She says feeding times were changed whenever they didn't match Meghan's public schedule. She says her professional advice about baby care was dismissed or ignored completely. And here's where the story gets genuinely emotional.
Once the agency creates a list of potential hires, you meet with that nanny. Then you have to meet with another one of Meghan's assistants. These are 2 separate auditions. Then you sign an NDA, which grants you access to Harry and Meghan. So this is the 3rd interview.
The nanny claims she broke down crying multiple times because she felt powerless to advocate for basic childcare standards. She describes feeling trapped between her professional obligations to the baby and the alleged demands from Meghan that contradicted everything she'd been trained to do. This isn't about strict parenting versus relaxed parenting. This is about allegedly using your child as a prop for your public image while claiming you're protecting him from exactly that. The nanny's account includes specific allegations about Meghan's reaction when Archie cried during a planned photo sessions, about the alleged pressure to keep him awake and alert for public appearances regardless of his natural sleep schedule, about the alleged dismissal of the nanny's concerns about the impact of constant disruption on an infant's development. You probably think every celebrity parent uses their kids for photo ops. But here's the difference. Meghan built her entire brand on the opposite claim. She positioned herself as the mother who rejected that system, the mother who chose privacy and normalcy over publicity, the mother who understood the psychological damage of treating children as public commodities. The irony is almost too perfect. The woman who claims she's protecting her children from being used was allegedly using them herself, but those parenting decisions were just the beginning of the pattern that allegedly pushed this nanny to her breaking point.
The agency has specifically been instructed to hide Harry and Meghan's identity from the applicant. They just want to make sure you're comfortable working with Meghan because of her reputation.
According to the nanny, Meghan's approach to childcare broke multiple rules that royal nannies have followed for generations. These aren't random rules. They're standards created over decades to protect both the children and the staff who care for them. And Meghan allegedly ignored them completely. The first major allegation involves Archie's feeding schedule. Royal protocol dictates that infants follow a consistent routine established by medical professionals and experienced nannies. It's not about control. It's about creating the stability that child development experts universally recommend. But the nanny says Meghan would regularly ignore the schedule based on her own preferences or public events. She says she was told to delay feedings because Meghan wanted to be photographed feeding Archie at specific times. She was told to change nap times, so Archie would be awake for visitors or photographers. She was pressured to use specific feeding positions that looked better for photos, no matter what worked best for the baby. Think about what that actually means. An infant's basic needs being subordinated to image management. A trained professional being overruled by someone with zero childcare experience. All while Meghan was publicly positioning herself as the ultimate advocate for children's well-being.
I'm working so hard. Is she really? Or is she just saying she is?
Well, according to their tax documents, they work 1 hour a week.
The second allegation is even more disturbing. The nanny describes multiple instances where she was allegedly publicly humiliated in front of other staff members when she tried to advocate for Archie's needs. She claims Meghan would dismiss her concerns in front of other household employees, undermining her professional authority and making it impossible to do her job effectively. She describes one specific incident where she recommended keeping Archie out of a scheduled appearance because he was showing signs of being unwell. According to her account, Meghan allegedly berated her in front of palace staff, suggesting the nanny was being overprotective and trying to interfere with Meghan's schedule. Archie attended the appearance. The nanny claims she cried in the staff quarters afterward because she felt she'd failed to protect the child in her care. But here's where the story reveals the deeper pattern. The nanny claims she wasn't the only staff member who experienced this treatment. She describes a culture where anyone who questioned Meghan's decisions about Archie was labeled as difficult or unsupportive.
I'm a great mum, I'm a great wife, I'm a great friend, I'm also incredibly modest. I mean, what a boaster. Stop boasting about yourself. What's wrong with her? She is racked with epic insecurity, isn't she?
Where professional expertise was dismissed if it conflicted with Meghan's preferences, where staff members learned to stay silent rather than risk public humiliation. The third major allegation involves what the nanny calls emotional manipulation. She claims Meghan would alternate between ignoring professional childcare advice and then blaming staff when things went wrong. When Archie was fussy after a disrupted schedule, the nanny was allegedly blamed for not managing him properly. When he struggled with sleep after being kept awake for appearances, it was framed as the nanny's failure to establish proper routines. This created an impossible situation. Follow Meghan's instructions and watch the baby suffer, or advocate for the baby's needs and face professional consequences. The nanny describes feeling trapped, powerless, and ultimately heartbroken. And here's the devastating detail that gives this story its emotional weight.
To commercialize her children, to pimp them out for financial gain, and I'm not being sucked in by it at all.
The nanny claims the final straw came when she realized Archie was starting to show signs of the stress. She describes a baby who became increasingly difficult to soothe, who struggled with basic routines, who seemed to sense the tension in the household. That's when she knew she had to leave. Now, here's where we need to be brutally honest about what's actually verified versus what's allegation. The nanny's account comes from anonymous sources. We don't have her name. We don't have proof of specific incidents. We don't have video or recordings. What we have is a detailed story that matches other allegations, but it's not proof in court. So what do we actually know for certain? We know the Sussex household had extremely high staff turnover during Archie's early months. That's documented. Multiple employees left in rapid succession, which is unusual for royal households, where staff typically stay for years or even decades. We know Buckingham Palace conducted an investigation into bullying allegations against Meghan. The results were never made public, but the investigation happened. That's confirmed. The palace doesn't investigate nothing. We know Meghan's representatives have consistently denied any mistreatment of staff. They've framed the turnover as a clash between American workplace culture and rigid royal protocol. They've suggested the allegations come from people resistant to change or threatened by a modern, independent woman. We know Harry and Meghan have talked extensively about protecting their children from media intrusion. That's their stated priority. Whether their private behavior matches that public commitment is the question this nanny's account raises. But here's what we don't know. We don't know this specific nanny's identity, which means we can't verify her credentials or her actual time with the family. We don't know if the incidents she describes happened exactly as she claims, or if emotion and time have distorted the details. We don't know if there's context we're missing that would explain Meghan's decisions differently. The mainstream outlets that have covered this story have been careful to frame it as unverified allegations.
Archie and Lily have finally been unmasked. Oh, H, they're already out there. They're already out there, H. So of course course I've got to use them to sell my clothes, to sell my wine, to sell my makeup, to sell whatever else comes next, probably children's clothing at some point.
They've included Meghan's denials. They've noted the anonymous sourcing. That's responsible journalism. But here's the pattern that makes this story credible, even without hard proof. This nanny's account isn't an outlier. It fits perfectly with multiple other staff allegations that emerged independently. The details are different, but the emotional pattern is identical. Dedicated professionals who felt powerless, humiliated, and ultimately forced to choose between their integrity and their jobs. When one person makes allegations, you can dismiss it as personal conflict. When multiple people describe the same behavioral patterns independently, that's not coincidence. That's evidence of something real. The fact that these sources stay anonymous doesn't automatically discredit them. Royal staff sign NDAs. They face genuine career consequences for speaking publicly. The anonymity isn't suspicious, it's survival. So we're left with a story that can't be definitively proven, but also can't be easily dismissed. A tearful account that aligns with documented staff exodus and official investigations. Allegations that fit the gap between Meghan's public narrative and the private reality multiple insiders describe. Here's what happens when people who worked for you start telling their stories. Everything you built falls apart. Meghan's post-royal identity is built on one idea. She's the caring mother who chose her children's well-being over status, wealth, and public approval. That's the story that justified leaving the royal family. That's what made her sympathetic to millions of people who saw her as a victim of the institution. But this nanny's tearful account doesn't just contradict that narrative, it completely inverts it, because if these allegations are true, Meghan didn't leave the royal family to protect her kids from being used as props. She left so she could use them as props without anyone stopping her. She didn't reject using children for public image. She rejected anyone's ability to stop her from doing exactly that. That's not a small PR problem. That's the complete destruction of the moral authority her entire brand depends on. Think about every interview she's given about motherhood, every statement about protecting her children from the same treatment she allegedly experienced, every lecture about putting children's emotional needs first. If this nanny's account is accurate, every single one of those statements becomes evidence of hypocrisy rather than advocacy. And here's why staff stories are uniquely devastating. That these aren't political opponents or jealous rivals. These are professional caregivers whose only job was to protect and nurture a baby. They have no public agenda. They're not competing for attention or status. They're just people who allegedly watched a child's needs being subordinated to image management and couldn't stay silent anymore. When a nanny cries while describing her experience caring for your child, that's not a PR crisis you can spin away. That's a character indictment. The pattern this creates is genuinely damaging. Every time Meghan talks about protecting her children now, people will remember the nanny who allegedly cried because she couldn't do the same. Every time she positions herself as a child advocate, the question becomes, which children? Because apparently not the one in your own home. This connects directly to the broader staff exodus pattern that's haunted Meghan since her royal days. The bullying investigation, the rapid turnover, the anonymous sources describing impossible standards and public humiliation. This nanny story isn't new information. It's confirmation of what multiple people have alleged independently. And here's the long-term consequence that Meghan can't escape. Staff stories don't fade. They accumulate. Each new account reinforces the previous ones. Each tearful confession adds credibility to the pattern. Eventually, the volume of similar allegations becomes impossible to dismiss as coordinated attacks or cultural misunderstandings. The woman who fled England to escape media scrutiny now faces something worse, the people who actually know her telling their stories. You can control media narratives with lawyers and PR teams. You can't control the lived experiences of dozens of former employees who all describe the same behavioral patterns. This is how someone's reputation dies, not from one big scandal, but from many people telling the same story about who they really are. Meghan said she was the caring alternative to cold royal tradition. But if the staff who worked closest to her described the opposite experience, what's left of that reputation? The nanny's tears matter because they're genuine human emotion in response to allegedly watching a baby's needs being ignored. That's not something you can fact-check away or explain with cultural context. That's just heartbreak. So here's what we're left with. A nanny's tearful account that can't be fully proven but fits perfectly with documented patterns. Allegations that directly contradict Meghan's carefully built image as a protective mother. And the devastating question nobody wants to ask, if this is how she allegedly treated her own child when she thought nobody was watching, what does that say about everything else she claims to believe? The caring mother image only works if the care is real. When the people closest to you start crying while describing what they saw, that image doesn't just crack, it shatters completely.